kind of what I believe would probably be the real headline of um, this podcast, but I'm doing it kind of you know reverse order, obviously here. But if you're kind of my age, um, if you're my age, I think if you're like in your 40s, like I am, 41, this era that Scott Hall was in, Scott Hall, who passed away at the age of 63. Scott Hall helped usher in a new, like, help usher in a era that is still being talked about today. Still being talked about today, years and years later. Everyone wants the Attitude Era. And I believe the Attitude Era, the genesis, was when Scott Hall appeared on WCW TV. If I'm not mistaken, and he did say at that point early on, to a degree of, you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here. And you remember, this was, I believe it was in 97. So, as a wrestling fan, and there's no internet, internet is not around, or it's in its infancy. There's no such thing as dirt sheets. I think wrestling had hotlines, hotlines, but it's not to the degree of. And sometimes on those hotlines, you have people trying to break news. They're never really right. But there's no internet. There's no camera phones. There's no nothing like you have now, where it's hard to keep a secret uh, on anything. So you thought when you seen Scott Hall on WCW TV, and you just seen him on Raw not too long ago, you thought, you never knew what happened. You didn't know that he was signed elsewhere. You thought he was with the company still. You just haven't seen him in a couple weeks. When you see Scott Hall on that TV, you really do think that there's going to be a legit fight. And you're going to thought, you were hooked in. You were hooked in even before Scott Hall made his appearance on WCW TV. Even before, yes, before you thought that there would be an actual invasion. Because you were hooked in with Razor Ramon. Scott Hall played that character, Razor Ramon, so great that we probably, some of us, and it's okay to admit, some of us probably for the longest time thought that Scott Hall was actually Cuban or Spanish because of the Razor Ramon gimmick. He played it so well. And I remember him from tapes watching him, even before he came to WWF. He was Scott Hall. How he morphed into Razor Ramon was in the story in itself. Before then he was more jacked up. He had a mustache. His hair was shorter, looking nothing like Razor Ramon. And the saying is the character Razor Ramon was based off of was almost like the mannerisms, the creation of it, the genesis was after seeing Tony Montana. After seeing Tony Montana, Scarface. And that was the genesis. That was Razor Ramon. You heard the promo. Ayo. The famous Ayo. The toothpick. Which, let's be honest, every one of us would, once you have that toothpick, you would have that toothpick in your mouth and you would flick it, try to flick it just like Razor Ramon did. You remember when he would just where he would just enter the when he would just, and I'm not doing it any service, but just that cool entrance that he had as Razor Ramon, where he would just kind of just ease into the arena, kind of like the way that Damian Priest does it too when you see him start his walk down the aisle. Who, by the way, Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, influenced a ton of people. A ton of reason, the reason why some people wanted to be wrestlers is seeing Scott Hall, seeing Razor Ramon. Ask Damian Priest, who I just mentioned. Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, major influence on Damian Priest. I remember that Razor Ramon character. I remember it, the mannerisms, where he would slide in. I remember where he would have the, and he would just flip the hair out of his jewelry. I remember when he would give the jewelry to the ring crew guy, and he said, listen, to a degree, don't have the exact verbiage down. If something happens to this jewelry, then something will happen to you. And he would say that all the time, and it was captured, and you believed it. Who can forget the ladder match that he had with Shawn Michaels, which was good, which was great, set a precedent. And then fast forward, with Kevin Nash would eventually come in, and then they would help turn. Hulk Hogan against all his friends, the Outsiders, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. And, NWO was many years a faction. Could they have been a faction longer? I don't know. I think they were just a faction long enough. Because eventually, fans start losing interest. But their first run of the NWO just in WCW was the best. Then you had incarnations of it in WWE and TNA, which never quite worked. But the initial run, because this was such a primitive time as far as social media, everyone thought that this was happening. Just a couple of days before, you had the Click embracing an MSG. Just these moments that stick out to you. The Hall of Fame speech. I mean, a lot of emotion went into that. Um, I know he had some issues, but we all do. We all do, and probably that's why he looks a lot older than he actually was. But you know, Scott Hall was a pioneer. And Razor Ramon, multiple time Intercontinental Champion, and I never had the big strap, never had the big one, and that's okay, because sometimes it's not meant to be in the cards. A great, a great athlete that Scott Hall, the outsider. Rest in peace to Scott Hall.